Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. McKenna Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, McKenna Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, McKenna Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And good morning, Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League fans, into this edition, the return of the mmjhl podcast, Season 2, Episode 23, on your home for mmjhl hockey on G-Show Productions on mmjhl.ca. We're brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders. We got a great show in store for you on this Tuesday morning, on the day that the Final Four is going to continue here, as the first game that we were able to broadcast of the Final Four came on Sunday night, where it was the St. Boniface Riels who actually ended up defeating the Fort Garry Twins, as that's how the final, or the Elite Eight scores ended up going. To start off Final Four action, the Charleswood Hawks came away with a 3-0 victory over the Railer Express on Sunday, to of course go up 1-0 in that best of 7. As for Gary, their 20-game win streak ends up being snapped against the St. Boniface Riels, as St. B remains perfect in the mmjhl postseason here in 2025 so far in the games that they've played. But looking back at the Elite Eight, two sweeps in there, both from the Twins and the Riels. The Twins, of course, not only having their 20-game losing streak snapped, but suffering their first loss of the playoffs on Sunday night. They'll be looking to bounce back tonight against St. Boniface at Southdale, but St. B gets by after sweeping St. Vital. The Twins end up sweeping the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. It took 5 games for the Hawks to get by Stonewall. Stonewall actually took the first game of the series, as we can see here, by a score of 5-3, but it would be a gentleman's sweep afterwards for Charleswood. And as for the Transcona Railer Express, probably the most notable series out of the 4 in the first round is, those last 2 games of that series were absolutely insane. In Game 5 with Transcona coming back to defeat St. James with 3 power play goals, a shorthanded goal in there, being down 3-0 heading into the third period and coming back to win that one. And then being in a dogfight in game number 6 and that one going to triple overtime, as we can see here. 3-0, meaning 3 OTs, and it would be Trey Selland who would officially slay the Dragon for the Transcona Railer Express against the St. James Junior Canucks, a team that, of course, was back-to-back champs, going for a 4-peat, and Trey Selland and Transcona in the third overtime period. Just over 90 minutes into that game, 92 minutes around there is when the goal was scored, and Selland sent his Railer Express through to the next round in a series where, we had the Transcona Railer Express losing in 7 games. Happy to say I'm wrong, because what a performance from that group throughout that series. Gutsy win after gutsy win, and hopefully they can build off of that moving forward in the rest of their Final Four series, as they'll be back at action tomorrow night against the Charleswood Hawks for Game 2, as we'll take a look at our Final Four schedules for your broadcast schedules. We've upped it to $7 per game per the league's request. So 50-50 of that money is going back to the league. The other half of it goes back to us still. Decided to raise the prices as the prices rise throughout these playoffs for us. Just in terms of, round by round, things get a bit more intense, and as for us, I guess, from a league perspective, they're trying to bring in a bit more money at this point in the season. So that's the reason why we go $7 per game for this Final Four series. Money still being distributed to the league, 50% of that going to the league, as mentioned, going to a great cause still if you end up supporting these streams throughout the playoffs, fans, by paying the $7 admission fee. But that game was actually played at 6 p.m. on Sunday night. Tonight's game goes at 7:30 for a Game 4 MFHL Championship final game day on our YouTube channel. But as for Charleswood and Transcona, they'll be back in action tomorrow night on the network at 8 p.m. at East End Arena. Happy to say that I'll be on the call for that one and making my return to mmjhl playoff game day live streaming in terms of calling games on Uscreen. As it was down at Seven Oaks Arena for Game 3 of their finals on Sunday. It was a lot of fun. Actually, no, it wasn't down at Seven Oaks. It was in Niverville, actually, for that game. And, of course, we've had some difficulties ourselves using our system to connect into some arenas. So, by joining up with Bentley Brandt, announcer for the Pembina Valley Twisters, he's been doing some work for the Fort Garry Twins as well, and he's going to be doing some work for us coming on as our second broadcast team, so we can bring you as many games as possible in as many arenas as possible moving forward here in this postseason. Bentley's going to have the call tonight, and for most of the Riel series, G-Show Productions' main team, which is myself and our original crews, we're going to be mainly calling the Charleswood Hawks Transcona Railway Express series during this Final Four. And who knows, me and Bentley may even do play-by-play and color commentary coming up for the finals. Which, yeah, I'm fine going with either role, so that should be a lot of fun. But just an example of if you haven't yet and are interested in purchasing games, this is how the process works. So if you go to our Uscreen channel, we still got to update our games in for this week, as this was from Sunday, but simply you click on this icon, or this thumbnail that would be available under mmjhl Live. It would take you to this screen. There's only one option to buy right now, no subscription option. But that could be something we add in next year. Probably for sure something we add in next year would be a subscription option if we continue with this. But you hit buy $7, and once you hit that, it just takes you to some basic account details and payment details that you need to enter in to be able to access the game. So the link is on the screen right now to check out the mmjhl playoffs. Be sure to check out gshowproductions.uscreen.io, and something that would be resolved going into next year, but I can't resolve it this year. Unfortunately, I believe I misled a few of our viewers. I didn't mean to do this. I misunderstood the concept completely. So, yeah, once you buy the live event, you only get the live event. So once it ends, that's it. I was under the assumption that once you bought the live event, you own the live stream forever. I'm still trying to clarify that with Uscreen right now, but that seems to be the case. Meeting with their team actually this week to clarify with the real person, as I was talking with their help center yesterday, some AI chatbot. But yeah, in terms of what would happen next year, we are going to create a bundle if we keep up pay-per-view live streaming and streaming for the mmjhl playoffs, where you'd be able to not only get the live event, but you get the game for free as well. Still debating if we're going to rank games out, given that this is the case. We shall see. Because of this issue that we just found out, and a parent actually had some complaints for us, and we're for the people at the end of the day. So we've made the Twins Riels game free to watch now, if you weren't able to catch it live. All live games, of course, though, will be a $7 fee during this round in the Final Four. Next round's price to be determined. But we got some great stuff to talk about in this episode. We're going to be talking about just the Elite Eight and how that went for the teams that are out, a bit of an outlook into next year. And then we're going to talk about the first two games, game ones of each series between the teams in the Final Four here, and previewing the outlook of how the rest of it will probably go. A bit of a longer intro for this episode, I know, about 10 minutes from me just rambling on and talking, but excited to have you here on this Tuesday morning. Finally back to stream on YouTube after having many difficulties with OBS, but we're here. We're going to come back after this commercial break, and we're going to show you some highlights once again from what we thought was the game of the year this year in the mmjhl before continuing here in episode 23, season 2 of the mmjhl podcast. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon takes pride in selling the tools farmers and tradespeople rely on. Like our Winnipeg location, Brandon carries the same tools you know and love. From all the brands you can trust, all in one convenient place. And with unbeatable service, we'll make sure you get the right tools to get the job done. Make Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon. Proud to serve Brandon's industrial needs since 2018. Stop on by today at 358 Park Avenue East. MMJHL Game Day broadcast. This pre-recorded version of this game between the Fort Garry Twins and the Charleswood Hawks, especially on that counterattack. As soon as they take it away, they were trying to get right back into the Hawk zone moments ago to attack. Ended up being an offside called on the play, of course. The Twins pick it up again. Here's Nick Gilberto off the post, and it's in! Hit the inside of the bar, and with that,
Number 18 strikes first here tonight for the Twins to give them an early 1-goal lead. But you get two players that were leaders on the River East Royal Knights. They come over to this Charleswood Hawks team now. The hopes for this team, obviously, going all in to get to a championship. Into the slot, Reynolds scores! And in his first game as a Charleswood Hawk, the new number for Mr. Reynolds, number 20. It's sent all the way down into the Twin zone again, and on it, number 15 in Bazin Eros. Bazin in front, turned aside. That short pass, he received it, but better to make the save was Pauls. Not that time as the Hawks go up 2-1. Into Fort Garry's end as Pauls leaves that for a teammate. The Twins skate this out. Gorchinski feeds it to the middle to Bolshaw. Passed across to Helamandaris, who turned aside there by Gordon. Helamandaris gets it back though. Cross ice feed to Gorchinski. Rip scores! The Charleswood crowd a bit furious about that one, as usually you see that get called. Neufeld gets taken out hard to the ice. Reverse picks the puck up, handcuffing Pauls a bit, but Pauls able to come away with that save. Now Neufeld gets lit up in the neutral zone, but a 2-on-1 headed the other way as that shot turned aside by Gordon. First forechecker in, waited a bit, allowed for the Twins to send a breakout pass out, but into the stick of Matani. A bit of trouble handling it, forces a turnover onto the stick of number 22. And Jacob feeds it, backdoor scores! It's a 3-2 lead for the home side, the Hawks, courtesy of Morrison. It's Vic Fussing weaving in, his shot blocked and sent wide of the net. Is this picked up again by Cole Penner? That shot through, scores! As for the teams in action tonight, the St. Boniface Riels right now leading 4-1 against the St. James Junior Canucks. In this game, Helamandaris under the bar scores a beauty! Glavina able to maneuver his way through into the Twins' end. Spins around, fires down low, trying to locate Elliot Lewis. That just out of 19's reach. Takes a bit of a high stick afterwards. No call on the play as Van Alstyne gets it back. Number 14, Vic Fussen into the slot, scores! Gorchinski not out there right now. Right now it's Matani along with Hedlund at the points, Medwick, Gilberto, I believe, as well as Lozano scores! As won by the Twins to the point. Hedlund gets taken out, or Livingstone, that is. Huge hit. Number 22 in Jacob. That short shot turned aside by Gordon again, and Medwick got lit up too there. Puck sent back in to the Hawks end. As skating with it's Stevenson before whipping this down the right wall. Cut off by Eric Johnson as Johnson makes his way down low. Tries to backhand that pass behind the back out in front, but couldn't get it there. Helamandaris tries to take it away. He now gets a quick little pass over to Belshaw, scores! Glavina loses his balance and ends up not cradling that puck. Turnover forced, and there's a wraparound goal! The Twins, 3 unanswered, to now lead this one 6-5. 13:28 remaining. This held at the line again by this Fort Garry Twins squad, as they really are getting their cycle game going right now. As that turned over, Balshaw able to, off the post that goes, almost a second. I believe number 29, Caligari, was turned away by Gordon on that shot. Now played up onto the stick, Carlson to the slot, Sperber scores! But the Hawks able to get it right back in again, looking to get in on the attack. But this stripped away by the Twins. Huge hit late on there by Matani. A tie hockey game at 6-6. Who's going to play hero tonight? Here late in this one. Oh, Elliot Lewis. What a move. Another beauty by Lewis. Backdoor feet. Oh, what a save by Pauls to keep it out. Back into the middle as Johnson has that taken away into the skates of a Hawks player. Glavina now skating up the other way. Has Carlson heading towards the net. Nice job to evade that check-in. Gets it over to Reynolds, and Reynolds denied by Alex Pauls. Coming up on a minute left to play here in this overtime period. Gorchinski wheeling in, protects on the forehand, trying to keep protecting this, but can't. It's onto the stick of Sperber. Has White with him, drops it back to White, stays on this! Oh, onto the stick of David Balshaw, trying to maneuver his way to net, but ridden out along the boards. Huge defensive play there. 0-0 right now in the shootout. 6-6 in this game here tonight. It'll be Rylan Huging first one on to shoot for this Fort Garry Twins team. Coming in from right to left. Looking to shoot. Almost loses possession of this puck. Got it back. Tried to dangle in on Gordon, but Gordon denies him. X on the board for the Charleswood Hawks for this round. Vic Fussin will be the shooter for Charleswood to start things off. He comes in slow as well. Looking to dangle. Backhand, forehand, but turned aside. So we go on to round 2 of the shootout. It'll be the ever so fancy Dean Gorchinski coming in slowly as well, going from side to side, tries to fake out Gordon and shoot that low glove side, but can't as he's denied on that one. And with that, this sets up for Kalen Reynolds to potentially get his team closer to a win in his first game in the Hawks jersey. His shot denied by Pauls as he was on top of his crease to come out and save that one. Still scoreless here. A player who knows a thing or two about scoring against Gordon has done it tonight here in Helamandaris. Looking to do it a third time, but can't quite. Another miss for the Twins. Carlson with the game on his stick. Coming down with a bit more speed. Dangle scores! And with that, it wasn't pretty by any means, but they'll definitely take it. The Charleswood Hawks winning this one here tonight by a score of 7-6 over the Fort Garry Twins. The final in the shootout. Matt Carlson with the game on his stick.
Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon takes pride in selling the tools farmers and tradespeople rely on. Like our Winnipeg location, Brandon carries the same tools you know and love. From all the brands you can trust, all in one convenient place. And with unbeatable service, we'll make sure you get the right tools to get the job done. Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools in Brandon, proud to serve Brandon's industrial needs since 2018. Stop on by today at 358 Park Avenue East. And welcome back to the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League podcast. Hope you all enjoyed those highlights from what we thought was the game of the year between Charleswood and Fort Garry. Of course, that matchup ended up going to Charleswood as Matt Carlson big time in that shootout, as you just saw back in that game. And that could very well be a finals matchup this season in the mmjhl, as both of these teams into the Final Four in Fort Garry and in Charleswood. Both of them finish as the top 2 seeds in the regular season, as Fort Garry finishing first place for the first time since 2001. So the year I was born in 2001 is the last time this team was atop of the mmjhl standings. But a lot of work for the Twins to do, more so than round one, as they ended up sweeping their way through, down 1-0 against St. Boniface. For Charles Wood, a different story. First shutout of the postseason for Keegan Gordon, and what a performance there from the top netminder in the MMJHL from the regular season. He's now 5-1. Only goalie in this top five with a shutout as well. Nathan Brzezinski continues to lead the way in points, but his captain not far behind him in Connor Davis. As we also look at the assist leaderboards, all players tied for first right now at 7, as we can see there. And then Brzezinski leading the way in the goals category. Right now, him or Davis. LaRock, depending on how he comes through in this series, what his performance looks like, as he's one of the only undefeated goaltenders left. They're the front runners right now, I think, as playoff MVPs for the Reals. For teams like Fort Garry, Carter Hallamenders, of course, leading the way in points right now, and then you look at his goals, he's right there behind Brzezinski. And then, just in terms of Charles Wood, they got so much depth. Kalen Reynolds has been fantastic so far in the playoffs, a great playoff addition for them, as they got him at the trade deadline this year. And then, of course, Keegan Gordon been so steady so far in the playoffs with the top save percentage here out of this bunch. But, also taking a look at a team like Transcona, players like Trey Sellen, Sage Delarone's been really steady in the goal, and Nolan Vandenbush have been big impact players for them so far. So those are just some of the players making noise right now that are in the playoffs, brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for those point leaderboards. But as for the teams that are out, the Raiders, the Vics, the Canucks, and the Jets, it's now to next season for these teams, looking into what could be for the players that are returning. But as is at the end of every MMJHL season, we got to say goodbye to some names from around the league, as they are officially aging out of this league. Won't be eligible anymore due to age, as it's the 03 born class that have played their final games out of those that have been eliminated. And we'll start off with talking about, I guess, the defending champs in the St. James Junior Canucks. For the first team since 2018-19, this team will not hoist a championship. Since we've returned to play here in the MMJHL and in hockey in general throughout the province, since we've gone back to normal in sports, since the COVID-19 pandemic, the St. James Junior Canucks have won in 2021, 2022, 2022, 2023, and of course last year, 2023, 2024, cementing themselves as a dynasty. But all dynasties come to an end, and theirs did this year, and they lost a good chunk of players that were so key to their championship success from last year to this year. When we're talking about players like Cale Price, Brady Whiteley, Noah Gilbert in net, as well as Tyrone Willing, back-to-back points leader in the league and their playoff MVP last season. But they still had players like Rory Neal, who came back, Ashton Romanek, Griffin Height. They added on at the deadline by adding in players like Nate Goodbranson, Riley Kukzak, Logan Enns, Caden Stewart, Stewart on the back end, who played significant minutes once Neal was out of this series, or was out of the series from the get-go, and after he got suspended indefinitely, Stewart's workload went up, and Logan Enns' workload went up in the net, as he was fantastic throughout that series despite the loss. If you look at the MMJHL's website, he has some of the best numbers out of any goaltender in that first round series. It just ended up being a bit too much for this team to handle in the end, especially going up against a Railer Express team that put on as much pressure as they did against St. James. Funny enough, though, St. James actually ended up out shooting them like 68 to 59 in that Game 6 loss. It was an absolute classic that we were proud to capture here on the network. But yeah, Logan Enns made some fantastic saves and really was a big difference in that series for the Canucks, especially in that game 3 game that they ended up winning to go up 2-1 in the series and ends his first start of the playoffs. But yeah, losing more quality players this year, I'd say, compared to previous years. In these back-to-back years, really has been the 2 years out of the Canucks dynasty where they've lost the most. And you're still going to have Arneson and Werthal coming back next year, Brady Thorsteinsson, Ross. Jacob Phillips and Ross coming back on the back end, and Aiden Ross. Jonathan Dick as well, who they acquired at the trade deadline from Pembina Valley that didn't even play in these playoffs. And then Connor Murphy, who was top 3 in wins this season, ends up coming back next year too. For the next 2 years, is an 05 born player. But yeah, for the Canucks, a team that they finished 6th place this season, a very rocky year for a team that's been the most consistent out of any organization in this league for the past 3 years. And really the things that ended up becoming the downfall for them were things that didn't really faze them at all because of how great their leadership was throughout, and how just stable they were from top to bottom, from the coaching staff down. We didn't exactly see that this year with, of course, the coaching staff getting fired and Rory Neal being suspended indefinitely, not even being able to be available for his team in the playoffs due to his actions on the ice this season. And to be honest, mmjhl fans, I would have picked the Railers to advance through the first round if I had known that Neal wasn't even playing, because him not being in the lineup for St. James, I don't care how fully healthy they are, without Neal in the lineup. Like, if a team has him what St. James had, and you put him into the lineup, this is a totally different St. James Junior Canucks team, who still fought very hard and gave Transcona everything that it could have handled. You got to think with Neal in the lineup, it would have been a bit different, but that not being the reality, he wasn't available to St. James. They rolled out the guys that they had. They weren't fully healthy still with Jonathan Dick not in the lineup. But yeah, for the players that were out there, like Griffin Height, who had a very good playoffs, leading the team in points. For players like Romanuk that have been there before, Bruce Enerson, had to be tough, given that this is the way your career ends after being champions for so long. But for St. James, now they look to next year with some okay talent coming back, but with the absences of players that they lose from this year in Romanuk, Height, of course, Rory Neal, deadline acquisitions too, even a guy in Trent Thorsteinsson, Aiden Bruce, Magnus Enerson, as I should say. And then the others they lose, St. James. Going to be interesting to see where this team ends up in the playoffs next year in that hunt. I'm going to say probably, depending on if they get significant impact back during the offseason, and guys like Arneson, Werthal, the guys coming back take significant steps, like Connor Murphy in the net too, taking that next step. This team, I think, finishes about middle of the pack to bottom half of the playoff seedings, as we saw this season. And if those players don't take that next step, and maybe they don't get the best impact back, we could be seeing St. James maybe potentially fighting for a playoff spot next year. But who's to know until we play the games next season and see how the roster looks. As for the St. Vital Junior Victorias, they're going to be losing a key part of their core that was massive for them during their finals run back in 2022-2023. And losing Tyler Rubini and Rylan Netraduke this season, they also lose a player in Brady Jaquette as well. That was a part of that finals run in 2021-2022. I can't remember off the top of my head if Evan Philippe was on that roster as a regular or just an extra, but he'll also be aging out. We'll also be saying goodbye to Alessandro Imbrogno and Michael Spence. But for St. Vital, as much as it sucks for them to say goodbye to Tyler Rubini and Rylan Netraduke, who their forward group, no matter how good it is, you take a massive hit by losing those guys. You hope that other guys in your supporting cast end up stepping up and taking on even bigger roles and succeeding through those into next year. And I think for St. Vital, what's huge for them is even though they're losing significant players at all ends of their lineup, and Brogno being that good depth piece along with Spence, and Brajic had taken a really nice step in his game in his final year this year and being more comfortable back there by the looks of it from what we saw from him this season. Really steady presence on that back end that they lose. But they're going to have players with the opportunity to step up even more next year. Both Andersons are coming back. Kobe Edwards, an 06 born player, was really great, really strong in his rookie year this year. And then we look at Lucas Gilson and Ezekiel Kirkness, both 04 players, and we know how much impact Gilson brings to this Vicks lineup. Every time he's out there, seems like he's making a highlight reel play. Ezekiel Kirkness was really steady in this first year. And then you're bringing back a really young defenseman that's finally going to be going into his adult years, and Jorgen now really went over my head that he's only an 07 born player, but he's going to have even more experience next year, as well as Dayton Kiesman and Blake Goretzky coming back next year. Kiesman, an 04 born player, Warren A this year. Could he be in line for the captaincy next year? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But Blake Goretzky brought another level to this Vicks decor in many ways this year, too. Him coming back, I think, is going to be huge for this team, as well as both their goaltenders, and Ethan Penner and Mason Tebek. The things that Sinfitel has to get better at, though, is consistency as a group. Throughout their games. I think in the postseason this year, you take a look at it, they led in every single game to start things off, but they just couldn't hold a lead. And yeah, they had some terrible bounces go against them that went really in favor of St. Boniface, but still, we saw some things that I think need to get corrected heading into next year, and they were problems that plagued the Vicks last season too, is just in the defensive zone, got to find ways to get cleaner. I don't know if it's to do with the structure they're playing in, but this is a team that, as the season went along, and really in that series, even though they were up in the first round, got outshot heavily. So yeah, they got some impactful players coming back next season. How do you get more consistent? How do you get better in your structure? It's going to be interesting. I assume that Tyler Anderson and his coaching staff are going to be back next year. But you got to think maybe at this point with how St. Vitel's kind of underachieved in the last 2 years for their standards, is this was supposed to be the year for them to go all the way and all in. Didn't exactly make many moves at the deadline, and yeah, saw them fall flat. Their worst playoff exit. Even though they had some terrible bounces go their way, they haven't been swept since the final series. They went to 7 last year in the first round against Charles Wood. Haven't been swept since 2021-2022 against St. James in that final series. And yeah, very disappointing way for the Rubini Netroduc era to end. But the Andersons, the Edwards, and the Vicks returning players next year, along with who they're adding, are hoping to right the wrongs as, this team, in terms of next year, they've been middle of the pack for the past few seasons. They were in the 4-5 series even in their finals run. Expect for the Vicks to be in that standing again next year, and depending on if their players can take the next step and if this group can figure it out, maybe this team even rises up to a 3rd seed next year, but going to be tough given that the contenders, some of them, I think they're going to be pretty strong again next year as well. As for the Stonewall Jets, a team that made it to the playoffs for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic started and we've resumed play from it. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, COVID-19 still is the thing, but the pandemic is really over at that. It's just, of course, it's obvious at this point. I don't know what I'm talking about, just rambling on here, but as for the Stonewall Jets, this group before hasn't made it to the playoffs, so even though they end up losing 5 games, they're able to gain some valuable experiences like getting to know the feel of playoff hockey in the mmjhl and coming away with a positive, which was a win in Game 1. But Charles Wood just a bit too consistent, a bit too deep, and just unreal goaltending gets them through in this series. As every single game between Stonewall and Charles Wood ended up being a track meet in shots. Shots were close. Stonewall even outshot Charles Wood in some of their losses. And I think for Stonewall, you got to be pleased with the fact that even though you end up getting swept or a gentleman's sweep, losing in 5 against Charleswood in the first round this year, you got to know that this team, they're a contender, and you're a team that, well, really the big goal was to make it to the playoffs. And on paper, it's tough to compete with a team like Charleswood when you're as top end heavy as Stonewall is as well. And the better depth, the better team came through in that first round series. But still, for Stonewall, even though they're losing a key part of their leadership group in their captain in Cole Emberley, a key part of their offense in Coleman up front, and a player in Morose as well, this team is bringing back some really significant pieces. And for Stonewall, this was a team I expected to make it into the playoffs this season. It's a team that I expect to potentially make one of the biggest jumps out of all the teams in the league coming into next year. When you got your best players heading into their final year in Peyton Bateman, Cohen Chang, as well as a player like Carson King, Alex Kaczorowski next season, and you take a look at the young pieces that they've added into this team, like Gavin Halad, as well as on the back end, taking a look at a player in Cale Chipman and even Noah Slobosian, a nice add from the St. Boniface Riels. And then you look at who you're returning next year and your 2 goaltenders, they could bring back all 3, especially in a guy in, of course, Spencer Hunnam was in his rookie year this year, a 2006 born goaltender who's already the best out of this group. So there's a lot of promise for Stonewall heading into next year, a team that finishes 7th this year, and a team that started off the season really strong. There was some dips in their play, and then there was some really strong sides to their play. A bit of a roller coaster throughout this season that, they end up making it into the playoffs, which was their ultimate goal. Now the next year, coming into next year for Pat Power and his group, is about taking that next step in the regular season, finishing a bit higher in the standings, which I think they will. Could see this team jumping up in the middle of the pack, or if everything connects for this team, we could be seeing this team very well move into the top 4. Given that Fort Garry has such an experienced group this year, who knows if a team like that is as good as next year as this year, right? So, yeah, there's opportunity, I think, and of course with St. James and St. Patel losing talent, with the talent that Stonewall has coming back next year, I think that they got to be really pleased heading into next year with how their situation looks. And given that they were able to finally get some playoff experience, a team that ended up getting some playoff experience too, that's very young, but didn't come away with a win, was the Raiders Junior Hockey Club. But for the Raiders, they lose nobody heading into next year. We're just going to confirm that because throughout this season, I feel like this has happened in the past where I've seen something and then it just ends up being kind of like I hallucinated and imagined the whole thing. But I'm pretty sure that this Raiders team has no 03 born players on their roster. As they traded them all away, they had players like Goodbranson. Of course, he got traded off to Stonewall and then ends up being a St. James Junior Canuck. But yeah, no 03 born players on their roster. They were also able to add in a young piece to their lineup in Logan Ash, who was really good with River East in his first year this year before getting traded, one of their top goal scorers. But yeah, they added a lot of nice pieces. They were able to get some playoff experience this year, of course, coming away back-to-back years and back-to-back sweep losses. But look, this is a team that, has potential to, I think, take the next step next year. All of their players returning and some quality players at that. They'll have their leadership in place with Ashton Henry returning as the captain most likely. Zach Enerson, I thought, was a good add for them from Charleswood, as he didn't really fit into their lineup at the end from what Charleswood was trying to do, and he kind of ended up being an expandable piece to that whole operation. But a nice add in Logan Ash too, and if you're able to get a healthy Nathan Lenowski this season, given that he stays in the and doesn't go back to the MJHL, and then you have Ryan Cromie, Andrew Danoon, Lucas D'Souza too, who had really strong years, Nicholas Chapman on the back end, a guy like Jackson Zook, a monster, and Riley Yurchenko, and then your 2 goaltenders and Evan Benair and Owen Savoy coming back. Raiders expect for that team to potentially make a lot of noise next year if, their coaching staff gets it right. It felt like they had a really strong start to their 2025 season. We're one of the most impressive teams in that side of the schedule. And a big part of that had to do with just the coaching being a bit different and them, righting some of the wrongs from maybe some of the sloppier play in 2024, that side of the schedule. But for the Raiders, of course, in their game, I think, like St. Vital, still trying to find some consistency. A team that I think a main goal for them next year is going to be looking as a team to average less shots against, as they got outshot heavily at points this season and average more shots against than they had shots for. But yeah, look for the Raiders. I think a very talented group next year that kind of figured things out as the year went along. Ran into a really experienced team and a team that's just simply too good for them at this point in Fort Garry in the first round. But had some moments where they were close in those games against Fort Garry. How do you build off of this little playoff experience you had going into next year if you're James Barkley and this Raiders Junior Hockey Club, a group who has no 03 born players on their rosters, so everyone eligible to return next season? We're going to get into the Final Four coming up here. We're going to send it, though, first to the MFHL playoff highlights that we got in store for you for it's a regular season matchup as we're still trying to get our playoff highlights edited. It's been a struggle, a lot going on here during the playoffs, mmjhl fans. But yeah, we're going to show you those highlights coming up next. We're going to be setting up as well Twins and Riel soon here on our Ustream channel. So stay tuned for that, as pre-ordering will be available, pre-registration before the game tonight at 7:30 at Southdale Arena. We'll be back for more coming up after these highlights here on the mmjhl podcast for Season 2, Episode 23.
And live from Niverville, Manitoba, on G-Show Productions on mmjhl.ca, it's a Friday night presentation of MFHL Game Day here on your home for MFHL Hockey. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator for tonight's action, Graeme the G-Show Forsyth. We're brought to you by McCann Fasteners and Tools, Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico, and Goaltenders. Down below the goal line now. Behind the net, occupied by Alameda. Banks it up the boards, up to the point to Vaderigo. Back to Scott Cook. Nice pass. Gets to Maya Grenier, who's denied by Alameda. Another save by number 35. Now it's behind her. No, behind the net. And it's up to Chloe Carrier, but she fans on the shot there. This picked up by Beavis, but she has her pocket picked. This onto the stick of Rio Pierre. She's able to angle pass. What a move by number 9 on the backhand. Oh, loses it on the forehand, as she was named an all-star in the Female World Sports School Challenge. What a save by Labossiere, sticking out that right pad, as this ends up towards the close boards to our broadcast angle. Wozni knocks Beavis to the ice. That turned aside by Labossiere. Another save made. This played up to Chloe Carrier. Now back across to Isabella Carrier, denied by Alameda. Top 3, maybe top 5 at the least. And Delaney Rigo, oh, bar out she goes. So close to opening up the scoring. Thought that might have hit the inside of the bar, but it didn't. As whacking away is Isabelle Labossiere. That tipped in, scores! It's the Eastman Selects who open up the scoring here tonight on home ice. As it's a great return to the lineup for Maya Grenier. She's the one who redirects it home. Sends it to the net. Paddling that to the end boards was Almeida. Losing her balance and on her stomach right now. A short read to the low slot. Grenier looking for her second. Whacks away at a rebound, but turned away by Almeida to take that away from Heidinger. But Heidinger able to get it back and squeezes by the Avers defense. Sent towards the net. Loose puck there to 9. Kennedy Carey on the doorstep was Almeida. Furthest away from our broadcast angle, Eastman able to get it back. That shot turned aside by Almeida with 12 seconds remaining on the Eastman girl advantage. Back up to Haas. That shot wide of the net. Almost off of Almeida. Inbound scores. Is that Maya Grenier again? I believe it is. As number 9 strikes twice here, this time on the Eastman power play. Is this? It'll be held in the Avers zone by Callie Rameler at the point to Scott Cook in the slot, turned aside by the pad of Almeida. It got it to Grenier, who played it to the slot, but that pass misfired. It's worked up by the Arrows now. Pierre with the step, dangling in, trying to tug backhand, but Labossiere denying with that left pad. Picked up by Dixon, plays it to the point as Eastman gets the cycle going. Tipton scores! Grenier completes the hat trick as Eastman goes up 3-0. What a moment for number 9 in a return to the lineup. And as this game's gone along, so how do you find another gear in their game? That's what the Arrows are searching for. Another good deflection in front for the Selects, denied by Almeida. Beavis now goes down low below the goal line in the Avro zone. Reverses this down to Isabella. Carrier tries going to the point, but that pass to Hawes got deflected in front, scores! It's Caitlin Schroeder, rewarded for her hard work tonight with a redirection on the power play into the back of the net to beat Adriana Almeida. Assist to Scott Cook, plays that to the slot, into the feet of Eidinger, whacks away at it, another whack turned aside by Almeida, back into the slot now, to the point to Chloe Carrier, her shot through, rebound into the backboards, that turned aside by Almeida again. Winnipeg, the Avros looking to bounce back tomorrow by the looks of it. So they'll be going into the lost column. Maybe in this one, still some time left as Speechley powers away through, denied by Labossiere. Trying to get a favorable bounce, but the Selects able to get a stick in the lane. Picked up by the Arrows, tipped on net, rebound there, but nice job by Lexi Remillard to get a stick in the grill of Liberty Amy. But the Selects sure know how to frustrate this offensive juggernaut in the Winnipeg Avros. 2 shutouts against them this season to win the season 3-1. It's the top offensive team in the league shut down tonight. A signature win from the Eastman Selects.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And welcome back to the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League podcast, Season 2, Episode 23 here on the G Show Productions YouTube channel and on our website at mmjhl.ca. Of course, mmjhl playoffs can be seen on our Uscreen service. All games pay-per-view for these playoffs, as we'll give you a look at the broadcast schedule here for Railers and Hawks. We're currently trying to get our plans in order to broadcast both games for Game 3 as well, as Charles would also be playing against the Railers at 7:30 p.m. on Friday night. But as for now, we got 5 possible games scheduled for that series, and we're planning on uncovering every single game here, carrying every single game for St. Boniface. And for Gary, Riel's lead that series right now 1-0, and of course Hawks lead their series 1-0 as we take a look at the updated playoff bracket brought to you by our wonderful sponsors in Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, McCann Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders. And our plan was to go live for the show on Sunday to give a true preview of these rounds, as they hadn't started yet when we had planned to put this podcast out, but due to technical difficulties, we were unfortunately unable to do that. But we're going to get into it now. It seems like I got a bit of a frog in my throat here on this Tuesday morning. But yeah, Final Four continues, of course, tonight with St. Boniface at home taking on the Fort Garry Twins. Now, this was our finals matchup, what we had it as, because I had St. James, of course, defeating Transcona. That didn't end up happening, as the Railer Express ended up making it through. But this series has everything you wanted it, mmjhl fans. Two teams that play with so much speed, with so much pace, that are so good in both their ends, that both have a bunch of depth throughout their lineup and great goaltending. That goaltending, though, by the numbers, not exactly there for the Twins in the first game, as Alex Paul has led in 2 goals on 16 shots against. Now, they were good opportunities from this Riel squad, and it just came down to the Riels being, even though they gave up 26 shots against in that game and only had 16 for a game where they challenged Fort Garry throughout it, stuck with them, skated with them throughout that game, and did a really good job of clogging up their zone and taking away, the high danger chances throughout that game against the Fort Garry Twins, and St. Boniface just finding ways to be opportunistic on their chances and putting that puck in the back of the net when it mattered the most in that game 1. But heading into this series in the regular season, the Twins gave the Riels a heck of a time. Won that season series 4-1 and held the St. Boniface team that averaged over 40 shots per game this season, 26.4 shots against per game when they played against Fort Garry this year. Now, that stat held up for the Twins in the last 2 matchups that they played against St. Boniface in their regular season finale. They only gave up 18 shots against the Riels, only gave up 16 in that game 1 loss. Of course, came away with that loss still, but for this Fort Garry Twins side, done a really good job at minimizing the damage that St. Boniface has been able to do on them most times. But as for this, they were sweepers in the first round for both of these teams, and as for the Riels, it was about defining moments in that first round. Puck luck was on their side, and one of those defining moments, of course, came in game 1, where they were down 4-0 against St. Vital, scored 5 unanswered to win that game in overtime, and that really set the stage for what was comeback after comeback after comeback for the Riels in that first round, as they were down 2-0 to the Vics in game number 3. Were able to come back and score 7 unanswered, and then in the final game of the series, St. Boniface down, they come back and, of course, score 3 straight goals in that second period in the span of just over a minute. So they can continue to ride off of those big stretches of momentum like they did in the first round. They're potentially going to have a great chance to move through in this series. Heck, they will have a great chance to move in this series. Playoffs hockey very much about momentum, and the Riels very much have it on their side right now. They cashed in big in game 1 against the Twins. They're at home tonight on home ice in the game 2 rematch. And, my big knock on St. Boniface, I think if I had any in that first round of action, was that this team kind of started slow in the first few minutes of the game, the first 5 minutes specifically. They got outshot to start off that game against Fort Garry, but their first 5 minutes looked a lot better, settled into the game more. And here's the thing, Fort Garry's found many ways to counter St. Boniface this year with just their style of play, but St. Boniface, given that they were the best offensive team in the league this season, they've upgraded their depth in goaltending, and this is a team that players still have a lot to give in terms of their point production. We didn't even see this defensive core get that involved in the scoring in the first round. I think that if St. Boniface is able to step up their game even more, which they did in that Game 1 victory against the Twins, and if they're able to do that throughout this series, I think Fort Garry could potentially be in a lot of trouble. But for this Twin squad, they were finally able to break the curse. They hadn't made it through a first round since 2011, 2012. So they finally got that monkey off their back. This group finally knows what it takes to win in the playoff series, but they had a streak end for themselves. They were on a 20-game win streak heading into that matchup against the St. Boniface Riels in game number 1, and they hadn't lost a game since December. So a long streak for them, a streak we haven't seen in a while in the mmjhl, finally came to an end. And the important thing now for this Twins team is how do you respond? As mentioned, I think that St. Boniface riding off of a lot of momentum right now from that first round sweep. I don't think they've let it up just yet, capitalizing on 16 shots twice to be able to win that game and getting good enough goaltending and good enough defensive play to stymie this Fort Garry Twins squad, which, they were only able to beat Larocque once in that first game. So I think for Fort Garry, it's about how they respond in this next game coming up, and even though you'd like to have a bit more high-danger scoring chances and have more fall your way in Game 1, just got to know that the streak was going to end at one point, and it had to come at some point, right? And it just happened to come in Game 1 of their first game of the Final Four series. But I think that for Gary, they're still fine. They're still okay for now. You know how good of a team that St. Boniface is and how tough you can play it, how they can play it. It's about how you bounce back in this next game coming up. You don't want to fall down 2-0 against a team like St. Boniface as they did last year. And yeah, I think that in this series, like, St. Boniface has a very good chance of taking it home, but I'm still going to roll with the Fort Garry Twins. I think comparing rosters from this year to last year when they faced off against each other in the Elite 8 quarterfinal series round, as that was a 3 versus 6 seed matchup last season. As Fort Garry was the 6th seed, St. Boniface was the 3rd seed. Different this year as Fort Garry the top seed and St. Boniface the 4th seed. But yeah, I think the problem for Fort Garry throughout that series was just the fact that they didn't have the right depth, I think, throughout that series to defeat the St. Boniface Riels. They finally started to get some secondary scoring throughout that series last year, but it was a bit too late. They already have more secondary scoring this year, the most 20 goal scorers out of any team in the league. And it just comes down to if their scoring can stay hot. I think that Fort Garry, they're so talented offensively that they will find ways throughout this series. I think that group of talent to, expose maybe the St. Boniface Riels as they have at some points in the defensive zone. But yeah, I don't know if that's going to be the case for the St. Boniface Riels. I think they're going to continue to play them tough in this series defensively. Their structure is going to be pretty sound, and I think that Fort Garry is going to have to work for their goals and work for their opportunities. And I think that, it also comes down to, can Alex Pauls end up making the saves that need to be made for this team to advance, as that just didn't happen to be the case in game number 1. So yeah, my call on this series right now, I'm not going to give any predictions on these series, by the way, in these Final Four, as my thing was, if I got all predictions right in the first round, maybe that would have been the case, but we're just going to preview from now on. I think that Fort Garry is still in great shape, but you lose this next game, it's going to be tough for you to win this series against St. Boniface, who's just going to continue to roll. You need to find a way to kill some of the momentum, and you just need to get more saves from your goaltending, as well as having that offense come through. If Fort Garry can find ways to do that and to break St. Boniface a bit, like their chances in this series. But if St. Boniface is able to keep up their structured play, their pace, and their goal scoring can come through, they can get key saves and key moments and capitalize on those key opportunities and continue to gain wins here throughout the first 3 games of this series to put Fort Garry in a real stranglehold. I think that Fort Garry could potentially be in trouble in this series. So we'll see how things play out. It's all about how Fort Garry bounces back heading into tonight. As for the Hawks, they're boarding the crazy train for this series against the Railer Express. Of course, the Railer Express getting through in a bit of a different way than Charles would in that first round. Of course, for the Railers, they got through in 6 games against the back-to-back defending champs, the Canucks, who are looking to complete a 4-peat. But it would be Transcona who would end up ending those hopes for the St. James Junior Canucks. And, I mean, Transcona did it in dramatic fashion. Back-to-back comeback wins, as mentioned, down 3-0 after 2 in Game 5. Rallied with all special teams goals to end up coming back and winning that game 4-3, scoring 4 unanswered in that third period. And then, eliminated the Canucks in a triple overtime, a back-and-forth game in Game 6, 5-4 in 92 minutes and 39 seconds of game time played. So, yeah, it's quite an emotional ride, emotional roller coaster that Transcona is rolling into this series with. That, of course, they're going up against a Hawks team that, has now won 5 straight after that Game 1 victory against Transcona on Sunday, as the Hawks, had to work for their game in every single game against the Jets. The Jets were in it, as mentioned, but the depth came through for Charles Wood in that series. 12 different goal scorers, 20 players with a point. Their goaltending was really solid, and losing for the first time against the Jets this season in that Game 1, because Hawks, they ended up sweeping them in the season series 5-0. How would Charles Wood respond? They responded like a championship contender should. Not wavering, not really being phased, relying on solid goaltending and their scoring prowess to get them through. And that's exactly what happened against Stonewall, and kind of the same type of formula for Charles Wood in that Game 1 victory against the Transcona Railer Express in Sunday's Game 1 victory. As we take a look at the box score from it, just trying to find it here. As 33-33, the shots in favor of no teams, as it was both tied in that category, but the Hawks just finding ways to get the key goals in key moments throughout this game. It starts off with Jaden Waddell. 1 second remaining in that first period, they end up going up on the scoreboard, and then 18-28 into the period, ends up being Nathan Glavina, who scores unassisted, and then 35 seconds into the third period, to really put their stamp on that game, it would be Elliot Lewis, shorthanded, assisted by a Chance Traverse to give this team a 3-0 lead. So, Charles Wood just continues to get solid goaltending throughout this postseason, continues to see their depth coming through, and they're scoring in different situations and in different ways. Now shorthanded, 2 even strength goals in that game, and I just feel like it's a different animal compared to the St. James Junior Canucks, where St. James going up against Transcona wasn't fully loaded, but we still saw them give Transcona some troubles. And for this Transcona Railer Express team, it's been a team this year where, as the season's gone along, as talented as their scorers are, we've kind of seen the offense run dry in some points. And when we take a look at them against Charles Wood, it ran dry as that season series went along, as the Hawks won 3 straight in the season series after losing the first 2 games of it. So I think that's the difference for me in this series, is just when we take a look at both of these teams, starting off with the Transcona Railer, or with the should be the Transcona Railer Express to start off, since they're the lower seed. An Elite 8 to remember, but gotta continue to keep focusing, gotta continue to clean up their game, as I thought there were a lot of sloppy moments at points in that first round that just can't happen against a team that, as mentioned in Charles Wood, plays with so much consistency and has so much depth and has some great momentum for themselves heading into this series with that gentleman's sweep. So I think that throughout this series, we're going to get a chance to look at it, see it firsthand on Wednesday night. It's going to be fast. It's going to be physical, as both of these teams have some big boys that can lay hits, lay the boom, as the great Costco guys say. Big AJ or Big Justice and AJ, as I should say. Don't mean to butcher those icons' names, but I just feel like, as good as Transcona is in net and as good as their depth is, I just think that Charles Wood has that more experience and have shown more consistency throughout this season in terms of being able to close out games and being able to play this Railer Express team better as this season goes along. I think that for the Railer Express, their best chance of winning in this series is they got to get off to amazing starts, immaculate starts, where you got to play your best hockey in that first period and hope you can get the saves and, key stops as the game goes along throughout the series. But I just feel like Charles Wood is going to be so well prepared heading into these games. Not that Transcona won't be, but this group is driven this year. And this group, I think, is on a quest to get to the finals, knowing that they've bowed out in back-to-back Final Fours as an organization in the past 2 seasons. As for the Railers, this is their first Final Four appearance since 2022. I think for a group that is going to gain a lot out of this series, but yeah, we'll see as it goes along. I know I said I wouldn't make predictions or anything, but I won't make predictions, but I'll leave it off with this. I think that if Transcona, if they're able to get off to strong starts and get off to early leads in this series, that's going to be their best path to victory. And be certain that this is a team that's going to compete until the very ending games. But if Charles Wood's able to continue their type of consistency and able to get the depth that they've been getting in the goal scoring and the goaltending and defensive play in front of Keegan Gordon, clearing away rebounds in the key moments, and Gordon bailing out his team and making saves like he has this season when things break down, it's going to be a tough out for the Railer Express in a series where, could see this going potentially the distance, but could very well see it going about 5 to 6 games in terms of who that victor may be. Well, we'll have to wait and see as the Final Four rolls on here tonight on G Show Productions, as it's going to be the Twins taking on the Riels in Southdale. Tomorrow night we're going to have Charles Wood and Railers Transcona at home to take on the Hawks at 8 p.m. We'll have the call for that game on the network. Bentley Brandt on the gshowproductions.uscreen.io platform. Going to have the call for you tonight on our network, of course, for Riels and Twins at Southdale Community Center. This has been a lot of talking in this one, mmjhl fans, but there's been a lot to talk about as the playoffs continue to roll along here. I've been your host, Graeme, the G Show Forsyth. Special thanks to you, the viewer, for tuning into this one on this Tuesday morning. Hope you enjoyed the show, everybody. We've been live since 7 a.m. Maybe been rambling a bit more since basically just woke up and decided to do this podcast. Said, screw it, not going to wait any longer. But want to thank you for tuning in if you did, mmjhl fans. Be sure to check us out on gshowproductions.uscreen.io for all of our playoff action this year, as we'll have games at this point charged for $7 a piece to watch them live. And unfortunately, you can only watch them live only once you buy them. Gonna find a way to fix that heading into next year for sure, don't you worry though. Excited for what's to come for these Final Four series. Gonna be entertaining between the Riels and Twins all the way to the end, as well as Railers and Hawks all the way into the end. Special thanks to goaltenders Terrico, McKenna Fasters and Tools, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for sponsoring another edition of this podcast. Leave your thoughts in the comments on who you think makes it into the championship series this year and who continues to live on to battle for their right to win the Jack McKenzie Trophy. I've been your host, Graeme, the G Show Forsyth. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. And if you're just starting your week, hope the start of your week goes well. Have a great weekend to everybody. We're actually going to see you again this week for another edition of the mmjhl podcast, actually. So until then, which might be in about 2 days from now, might even be on a Friday. Not too sure yet. We'll see you sometime later this week. Take care, mmjhl fans. Enjoy all the action coming your way. Twins, Riels, on the network tonight on our Uscreen service. Be sure to purchase the game if you can't make it there in person. That's all for today, MM fans. Take care. Thanks for watching.